And good morning, all. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'd like to introduce the members of the panel this morning, and they are via Zoom, Gail Anderson and Brent McIntyre. Myself, my name is Mike Palatruglio, and I'll be sitting as the chair today. We have as the administrative secretary this morning, Mrs. Crystal Harlan and Nuwan Thuadala Mansinga. And Nuwan, I will just call you by Nuwan. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note that you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing is concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. Statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board of Revision decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if matter pertains to value or classification, or to Court of King's Bench if matter pertains to application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm your points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 5 on our docket today. Mrs. Harlan, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, would you please state your full name?
Nuwan Tudugala Munasingha.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, would you please state your full name?
Terry O'Freimer.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Nuwan, would you like to walk us through what's going on this morning with this first property being BA ID number 33844, appeal number 244674?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. File number 244674, roll year 2025, 300 Portage Avenue, address, business ID 33844. This is a Canadian Life Center. It's the bid inside the Canadian Life Center. Total ARV 4,769,400. Total area of the premise 298,647 square feet. overall ARV per square foot, $15.97. You can see the detailed ARV calculation on the page, and premise area 298,647 and base ARV 13 and 27 cents plus utility. Then the annual rental value comes at 4,769,400, and you can see comparable rent. I have add 4 comparables there. First one, 1636 Canston Boulevard. The building 2009. I have to mention the subject property building 2004. And the area for the first comparable, 98,570. It's 20-year lease. Lease started at 2006 July, and rent per square foot, $15.35. I have mentioned other thing here. I try to find the same area in the same. I try to find some comparable in the same area, but it's hard to find because the premise area is huge for the subject property. So that's why I try to find a area around the city. So the second second comparable, 1487 Regent Avenue. It's a 2010 built building, and reported area 41,535. The lease started 2019 and 6-year lease. Reported rent per square foot, $12.76. Sorry, 76 cents. And then third comparable, 1729 Pembina Highway. That building's built in 1995. So the reported area 30,986, and the lease started 2008. It's a 20-year lease. Reported rent per square foot $11.25. And the last comparable, 1910 Pembina Highway. It's a newer building, 2022. It's 5-year lease. Lease started 2019. Area 39,502. Reported rent per square footage, $12.55. And page 2, I just add like all leases for the and page 3, you can see the location of the property, and page 4, you can see the aerial picture of the property. This concludes my presentation. I believe 4,769,400 fair value, fair ARV for the business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nuwan. Questions, Mr. Reimer?
I have no questions at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre, questions at this point?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe I have any further questions, so Mr. Reimer, please, may we
So,
have
Mr.
the presentation?
Absolutely. So, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the submission that we filed, as indicated in that submission, we had the opportunity to work with the assessment department on the 2025 realty assessment of the Canada Life Center. And based on my review of the materials submitted by the assessor this morning, I can tell you that for this property and the remaining roll numbers that are contained within Canada Life Center, we're simply seeking confirmation under 54-1 at this time. So that's what we'd ask for this business assessment. Thank you.
Okay. I guess that I don't, well, maybe we should ask question, just in case there are questions. Yuan, do you have any questions at all, sir?
No, I don't have. Thanks.
Mr. McIntyre, any thoughts?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And I don't believe I have any further questions, and I do thank you for that, Mr. Reimer. So if you don't mind, we'll have Nuwan read each one in separately. And we'll do the exact same thing. Nuwan, you can just basically read us in the pertinent data. We don't have to go through the comps again, and we'll conclude this as quickly as possible. So just give me a moment. We will move on to the next property. So this is premise ID 33839, also 300 Portage. So Nuwan, would you please give us your presentation, and we will move from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. File number 24-4661, business ID 33839, 300 Fort H Avenue, roll year 2025. Total annual rental value 413,820. So I'm not going to read the whole information. So I'll ask to confirm the value of 413,820. This is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this point, Mr. Reimer?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. And questions, Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre, any questions, sir?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and I have none either. So, Mr. Reimer, I'm coming back to you. So, please.
We'd simply request confirmation of the present business assessment of 413,820 at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. We will move on to item number 3. And just give me a moment or two to write some things down. All right, Juan, if you would walk us through your presentation on premise ID 33837, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. File number 24-4657, roll year 2025, 300 Fort H Avenue, business ID 33837, total annual rental value 64,260, total area of premise 580, overall average rent per unit $110.79. I am going to ask to confirm the value of confirm the ARV 64,260. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Mr. Reimer?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, any questions at this point?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you, and I have none either. Go ahead, Mr. Reimer. I'm assuming we're going to seek confirmation on this also.
Yes, indeed. If we could confirm the present assessment under 54-1, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next property. Okay, Mr. Yuan, would you please give us your presentation on premise ID number 511?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. File number 24-4655, roll year 2025, 300 Fort H Avenue. The business ID 50011, total annual rental value 55,020, total area of premise 1,520, overall average rent per square foot $36.20. I am going to ask to confirm ARV 55,020 for this business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reimer, any questions at all?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Anderson, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre, any questions, sir?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you, and I have none. Mr. Reimer, are we again seeking confirmation here, sir?
Yes, please, if we could confirm the present assessment under 54-1, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will move on to the next property. Just give me a moment or two to write some data down. Under one, I note that this is an address at 3969 Portage Avenue with premise or business assessment ID of 41872. So can we have your presentation on this, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. File number 244888, roll year 2025, address 3969 Fort H Avenue, business ID 41872. I have to mention we calculate ARV based on economic calculation for this property. So total ARV annual rental value so I found one error there. So because of that, I have recommendation here based on the economic calculation. The value should be revised to 1,975,200. You can see the calculation in page 2. So we have for like 40. The reason for error was we calculate as like total. When we are calculating, we got the total relative value to calculate the economic calculation, but when I am reviewing the property, I notice only that business premise linked with the 60T portion. That means the business value should be generated from the 60T portion. So I use that 60T portion to calculate the economic value. When I am calculating the economic value, I got that 1,975,200.
And how much is that overall rate, sir?
Sorry. So the overall rate means I took when we are calculating the economic calculation, we take the relative value, 10% of the relative value, and add the occupancy cost. So that's the calculation on the page 2.
Your overall rate drops to $80.44, correct?
Yes, as I believe so. I didn't calculate the overall rate. Sorry.
Okay. That's your presentation, sir?
Yeah, that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Comes Mr. Rammer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. and I'm just going to say Mr. Assessor because I'm not going to get your name right. So, Mr. Assessor, it's something that confused me a bit. On your page 1, the premise area that's shown as 24,556, but that, and I saw that as well in my research, but that the actual area, I think, if I'm understanding right, the actual area of the subject premise is what we calculate is actually 161,000, taking out the 40S component. So do you know, I guess my question is, do you know where the 24,556, I'm sure that's an error, but do you know where that arose from?
Yeah, because like when we are, what we are doing, when we calculate the economic calculation, we calculate by our, we calculate it and override it, right? So we override it into the one premise. So that premise area shown in this paper, that's the reason.
Okay, but looking at your page 2 then, it looks like where you've got for electricity, pardon me, electricity and water at 175,000. The actual area of the, leaving aside the 40S component, the actual area of this premise is probably in that sort of closer to that range between 160 and say 175. And if you're not sure, Mr. Assessor, that's okay. I'm just trying to figure this out.
Actually, I can answer the question, like what was happened. I think previously one of our senior assessor inspect the property, I think around 2012 or like long times ago. So at that time they figure it out the area for like each heating, electric and water. That's the area we use to calculate this amount.
Okay, all right. Mr. Chairman, I'll have more to sort of speak to in my presentation, but those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And questions, Mr. McIntyre, sir?
Just one confirmation. So there's no rent comparisons for this premise?
And I didn't add any rent comparison because I thought this is a economic calculation. Because of that, I thought I don't want to add rent comparables.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Ms. Anderson, questions?
My questions were asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Nuwan, I'm just want to touch back on, it appears the original calculation on page 1, you were using occupancy costs at 24,000 556 square feet, correct?
Yeah,
This is part of the problem that I believe Mr. Reimer was pointing out, correct?
exactly. Yeah, what was happened, like when we are when we are calculating the economic calculation, we calculate manually, and then add we override it to the one premise. So we override other premise to 0, and then so that's area show on the paper. That's the reason, I guess.
Okay, and so on page 2, you've got a revision to not only to the realty value because of the class code that you chose, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you also corrected the areas for the
Occupancy.
occupancy costs.
Yes.
And that's something that Mr. Reimer is going to potentially shed a little bit more light on. So, okay. These are the correct areas that have been used on this property prior to this cycle, sir?
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Boyd?
yes, from, as I remember, is from 2008, or I had around 2012. I think Brian Dupree was inspect the property, and then they are discussed. I think he inspect, and he realized he realized the area, and we have used the same area for each year to calculate the economic calculation. I checked the whole note and information for this one.
Thank you very much, Luan. I appreciate that. Mr. Reimer, can we have your submission on this, please, sir?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. If we could go and to preface the discussion, we are using the same methodology as to the economic rent being 10% of the assessed value of the fully taxable component, leaving aside the school tax exempt premise, which is not assessable for business assessment. So on page 2, I'm not going to be able to fully explain to the board this morning the difference between our calculated area, which was based on our review of the realty records, versus the areas that Nuan has provided. Certainly, what I can say with certainty is that the 24,556, and I do reference that in our brief, that area is not correct, obviously. We are talking about an area, a premise area of this, we're suggesting 161,000 and 112 square feet based on our review of the realty assessment. If we go to page 4, so this is the Hockey for All Center at 3969 Portage. The 2025 realty assessment was appealed to this board, and at that hearing, the fully taxable component was reduced from 17,126,000 to 16,091,000. I do note that Nuan's presentation and the recommendation was based on that reduced Code 60 other fully taxable component of 16,091,000, taking 10% of that. And so if we go to then page, that's page 6, please.
Okay.
So pardon me. The board ordered a reduction of the fully taxable component, as I say, to 16,091,000. The economic rent was used in this case by both parties, but the submissions, and a copy of our submission is attached, we had actually requested a further reduction in the realty assessment at the Board of Division from 17,126,000 to 12,857,000. So the reduced value of the Code 60 other component that we had sought was significantly lower. The Board of Division order has been appealed further to the municipal board. So what I will ask, Mr. Chairman, is just for the record note, and now I'm on page 7, if one were to apply the reduced an economic rent based on the reduced value of 12,857,000 as we requested, the ARV calculation on the bottom of page 7, that would then come to based on our calculations, 1,728,860. That though is based again on the premise area of 161,102 square feet, and including the occupancy costs shown there. We had on page 8 then provided an alternative, and this is where the occupancy costs are different based on the information we had at that time. What we had calculated based on the Board of Revision reduced or the reduced value for the Code 60 other taxable component on the realty. We had actually calculated taking 10% of that, and the occupancy costs as we calculated them would come out to $2,044,000, but that's higher than, it's not consistent with Nuan's calculations. So what my suggestion is going to be, Mr. Chairman, is to, in this case, if you were to apply or make the adjustment to the roll to $1,975,260 as suggested by Nuan in this case, and that's essentially what's governing the business assessment as a function of the realty right now. And we would suggest that might be the route the board might want to go, and then with the expectation though that we would likely bring this up to the municipal board ultimately to have it have the matters determined at the same time, both the realty and business assessment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reimer. And questions, Nuan?
Maybe one question. Are you able to inspect the property?
I haven't. Yes, I have inspected the property. It was a few years ago. It was actually firstly myself and then with Brian as well.
Okay, that's all my question.
Thank you. Questions, Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre, any questions, sir?
I think I do. So this property has been appealed in the realty before the board, correct, Mr. Reimer?
Yes. Yes.
Did any discrepancy in the areas surface then?
Actually, on the realty side, it didn't.
It didn't.
No.
And you're requesting $1,975,260?
Well, that's the department's calculation based on the realty assessment as it sits right now, based on the reduced value ordered by the board. I'm requesting $1,728,860, but that would be inconsistent with, that's based on the realty value that we sought versus what the board ordered. So what I'm suggesting is, notwithstanding our request, if the board were to go with the economic rent based on the assessment as it now is on the roll, based on the Board of Revision realty hearing, that would be consistent with the previous hearing, and then the expectation would be that we just have this matter brought forward to the municipal board as well, along with the realty assessment matter that's already there.
So there are on the assessor's brief, there's the page 1, he's requested 1,975,200. And on calculation, it's 1,975,260. I think they're both divisible by 12. So are you requesting, and I know I get too picky on this, but are you requesting the 1,975,260?
No, I'm requesting $1,728,860.
196.
Yeah, but based on, and just to clarify, Mr. McIntyre, I think what he's saying is, if we'd have used what they were asking for at their realty hearing, then it would be the lesser amount, the $1,728,860. But to be consistent, he's saying we should use, potentially use the value that the Board of Revision set the realty valuation at. I think that's what Mr. Reimer is saying.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the actual ARV calculation.
Yes, and maybe that's something that Nuan can, it appears that you have a $60 discrepancy between your first page recommendation written in and the second page where it's actually calculated. It should be 60 at that point, 60.
I actually rounded up, so that's the reason.
Okay, so you want which number, Nuan?
1,975,000 1,200.
200 even?
Yeah, like when we are adding, we rounding up to the two numbers, so two decimal places. So that's why it's, I mean, either way, it's not a big deal. It's like a small number, right? So the
We wanna
difference,
make sure we get it right, Nuan. That's what we're trying to do.
yeah, the difference is the rounding.
So you'd be comfortable at 1,975,200, correct?
Yes,
And I'm assuming, Mr. Reimer, for the sake of carrying forward as you've suggested from the realty board order, that would be the number you'd be okay to go forward with at this moment?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. McIntyre, I kind of hijacked you there for a moment.
Well, that's fine. This certainly needs to be verified with the discrepancy in the areas.
That appears to be the major issue, and it was a question that I was gonna ask Mr. Reimer, actually, which with respect to, is this the first time your company has represented this particular
Oh,
property,
no,
sir?
no, we've been working this property for years.
Okay, and I'm curious because if that being the case, you would think that the area that you're using for costs on the BA would have been long ago set, and I'm just kind of curious to see how it was done previously within your records, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, so the reviews that we've done, put it this way, this property hasn't been the subject of very many appeal hearings. Obviously, the 2025 realty was an appeal. I believe there was some older appeals several years ago that we are involved with, but that's going back to 2013, 14. What I couldn't explain in the context of the realty assessment, again, our materials are attached, and it was, it was reasonably clear what was going on with the taxable component representing 92% of the area, 92.3%. Class code 40S school tax exempt component being 7.7% of the total assessment. But what I cannot explain, like what I do know with, obviously, and I've said this, the 24,000 some odd square feet, that's a number that just doesn't jive with anything at all. Nuan, I believe, had mentioned that they, if I understood right, they actually took some other, I don't know, and Nuan, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there was a combination, or some assessments were combined to get to the new revised number. But pardon me, I think if anything, those revised numbers, the combined numbers, would be as shown on the assessor's brief on page 2 relating to the occupancy costs. But the area that we have of the 161,000, that's different again. It's obviously much closer. But I noted that with the electricity and the water charges, the department's actually now got 175,000 square feet. And that is not consistent with the split between the 40S and the code 60 other fully taxable code 60T. So I can't explain that, Mr. Chairman. It's obviously 24,000 is way off. It's got nothing to do with anything, but what we're showing is 161,000.
Okay. So I guess at the end of the day, this is an issue that will be ironed out, I'm assuming, in the potentially going forward to the municipal court.
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
Unless there's any further questions from the panel members, no?
I have no questions. Thank you.
I have
I
no
think
questions. Thank you.
I've gone over what I need to understand a little bit better, so I thank you both. Unless you have a brief conclusion that you'd like to go over, gentlemen, either?
No, thank you.
no, thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I believe we have heard all items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a good
Thank
morning.
you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. All right, Mr. Chair, I will go take us offline and may we have a 5 or
Yes, of
7 minute
course.
break?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.